It's that time of the year again, when you have your annual or semi-annual appraisal process, where you look at the entire cycle's performance and shape feedback that you give your team members. Now, this can be a powerful moment for you to help your team members grow as individuals and professionals, in turn creating a stronger organization and finally having more impact as the development sector. But at the same time, it can be quite nerve wracking. Managers are often beset with questions like how much feedback is too much feedback? How do I deliver good news differently from bad news? Do I give people tough feedback or do I just avoid conflict? And how do I protect the relationship I have with the person from the process of giving them hard feedback? So, in this series of short videos taken from one of the trainings I had conducted recently, we will look to answer all of these questions and more in a structured way. First, we will look at how do you prepare for an appraisal conversation, then at how do you run an appraisal conversation effectively, and finally, what comes after. Along the way, we will have some practical frameworks, some helpful examples, and some lessons from the many mistakes that I have made along the way. So grab a pen and paper and let's dive in. I would argue that there are three parts. When you talk about the appraisal conversation, there is actually an important preparation bit, followed by the actual appraisal conversation, and then coming to what I would add on saying closure and follow up. I'm going to just remind you of what you saw in the last time, whoever attended. The goal of appraisal preparation is to focus and refine your feedback to make it useful for the person, right? And very quickly, just four things that I thought are important for you to think about. One, have you thought about what they have done? There is a high chance that you're only remembering the last 3 weeks of work, but you've been working together for 6 months or 12 months now when you're having the appraisal conversation. So, what I do is I actually search for the name in my email and I actually go through my mails to remind myself what all we've done together as I make jot down things that are happening. Now, next level is even through the year there are people who keep a feedback tracker. Whenever there are things, you just note it down onto an Excel, so that you kind of remember all the good and the bad during the year. Right? Once you have remembered all that you have done and interpreted what it means for the feedback, I would just make sure, have you written down your key points? Do you know what the synthesis looks like? So it's either going through the competency matrix and then synthesizing, but like you need to know what are the three things you want to tell them. Like three good things, three things they need to do better, whatever it is, right? But you need to have that clarity, ironed out clarity before you walk into the conversation. Next thing is once you know what you want to say, have you thought about the broader implications of this to the point that Satish was making? On his mind is also saying that how will people feel at the end of the appraisal process? How is this going to be perceived? Will this be seen as fair? Will they understand where we're coming from? That it's coming from a duty of care when you give them tough feedback, etc. So if you think, especially for those edge cases like promotion or issues, either end of the spectrum, have you made sure that you've spoken with your manager slash HR, whoever needs to know? And if you're not sure about certain things, also remember you can ask for help saying, listen, I'm going to have a conversation with Rahul today or tomorrow, next week. I'm not very sure what to tell him. Right? Here's what I figured, but I'm not able to figure out what he can do better. As simple as that. That could even be a problem, right? I've had people who are so good in their role. I don't know what to tell them to improve, right? It's not a tiny thing. So then I speak to someone who has more experience, has seen more people, and then I get an idea saying, yeah, that's fair. Right? It's incredibly helpful when somebody else gives you an articulation. Uh, and once you have that word, once you have that idea, then it's much easier. And finally, before you walk into that conversation, you need to make sure that your team member also comes in having thought through. Yeah. So they've done their thinking and they come into the conversation after that, right? So, but make sure that they are coming in with that thought. The reason I thought of a checklist was to make sure that each of these steps you can forget. You can get into writing down without thinking. You can think, but imagine that you'll remember it when you walk into the conversation. You might have the best feedback ready, but you haven't told people what matters. Or finally, they walk in and they haven't prepared themselves for the conversation. So these are the four, like, I mean, I could flip it and say these are things that could go wrong, or these are things that you have to make sure you do before the conversation happens, right? And this will set you up for success.
So, what's the hardest part for you in terms of preparation for an appraisal conversation? Drop it into the comments below, and I will see you in the next video where we break down how you can actually run a good, effective appraisal conversation.